Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. One moment. We welcome all of you to join us as we explore our Unitarian Universalist faith, which draws us into a community of justice seekers with a commitment to lifelong spiritual growth and compassionate service to the community. In today's service, we will explore the fifth and sixth principles. Our worship leaders today are Reverend Margalie Belizaire, Reverend Debra Haffner, our music director, Aubrey Connelly-Candelario, Sandra Bullock, and myself, Linnea Nelson. Our announcements now run before and after the service. I can hear your applause in the distance. All announcements have links in the weekly update or on our website and will be shown again after the service. We hope to see you all at the online fellowship after service. We have two special announcements this week that we will share with you here. First is the Path to Membership. Learn about the First Unitarian Church of Orlando and Unitarian Universalism at the Winter-Spring 2020 Path to Membership series. Will be held from 11:30 to 1 on specific Sundays, and so you can contact members at orlandouu.org for the schedule. And now we welcome Sandra Bullock with a special announcement.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Pollock, and I'm a member of the Bridging Task Force. We recently met and have made the difficult decision to move the date for Reverend Margalie's installation from February 19th to April 9th. Now, we know this is disappointing, but we think it's important to our 1U congregation to have an in-person celebration. And changing it to a later date certainly increases the chance of that being able to happen. Now, we know there's no guarantees. If anything the last 2 years have taught us, it's that there's no guarantees. But even if we were in orange status by February 19th, that still would limit the number of people who could attend, and we just don't feel like that's right. Now, please know that Reverend Margalie is completely fine with this decision. There is no time limit for installations, and in fact, with COVID, some new ministers have been waiting up to 2 years to get formally installed. We're certainly hopeful that's not going to be our situation. But make sure and mark your calendars for Saturday afternoon, April 9th, for Reverend Margalie's official installation. You'll be seeing more announcements, of course, in the e-blast and at worship and on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And now, let's light our chalice and say the words with me. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. In commemoration of the Roe v. Wade decision and the ongoing fight for reproductive justice, reproductive health, reproductive rights, we are joining other UU congregations across the country for a Sunday of solidarity, support, and reflection. It is in that vein that this worship service is being shared with you this morning within the context of our fifth and sixth principles, which are the right of conscience and the urge and the use and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, and the goal of world community peace with liberty and justice for all. I now call us to worship with the words of Reverend Dr. Haffner. You are welcome here. If you are straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersexual, demisexual, pansexual, and asexual, or resist labels altogether, you are welcome here. If you are transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, or cisgender, you are welcome here. If you are confused about sexuality, have questions, struggle in an intimate relationship, or struggle because you aren't in one, you are welcome here. If you have had an abortion or an unintended pregnancy, given up a child, had a miscarriage, have AIDS or HIV, struggle with infertility or sexual dysfunction, you are welcome here. If you have been the victim of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or sexual assault, you are welcome here. If you have made sexual decisions or had behaviors you regret, you are welcome here, and we will help you offer restorative justice and healing. Your sexuality is holy and sacred and an integral part of who you are. You are welcome here. As Unitarian Universalists, we will side with you, love you, and fight for your rights. We seek to create a world where sexuality and sexual diversity is celebrated with holiness and integrity. Please join me in singing our opening hymn, with muted mics, of course, River Flowing in My Soul. The words will be projected on the screen.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart.
Ages today is called A Voice and a Vote, and it was written by Janine Grossmeyer. When Olympia Brown was little, girls weren't supposed to whistle. Girls weren't supposed to climb trees or run fast or catch frogs. But Olympia did. She did all those things and more. You can do whatever a boy can do, her mother and her father told her, and Olympia knew it was true. She climbed trees and ran fast, and she even caught frogs. And when she was in school, she answers the teacher's questions loud and clear. Little girls ought to be quiet, said one lady in town. Little girls ought to not make themselves heard. But Olivia did. She had a voice, and she was going to use it every day. When Olympia was a teenager, young women weren't supposed to go to college. Young women weren't supposed to leave home to go off and learn complicated things. But Olympia did. Olympia went off to college, and she learned lots of complicated things. And she went to Antioch College, and she studied there. Young women ought not to go to college, said one professor at that school. But since they are here, they must read their reports. Young women ought not to make speeches from memory like the men. But Olympia did. When it was her turn to present her report, she rolled up the papers in her hand and said each and every word loud and clear. Olympia Brown had a voice, and she was going to use it every day. When Olympia Brown was in college, women weren't supposed to wear pants. Women weren't supposed to wear anything except very long dresses that came all the way down to their toes. But Olympia did. She wore dresses that came down only past her knees, and under them, she dared to wear pants. Bloomers, the pants were called, after Amelia Bloomer, the woman who had created them a few years before. Women ought not to show their ankles in public, exclaimed some of the men, and women certainly ought not to wear pants. But Olympia did. She wore her bloomers every day, no matter how much the men sneered. When Olympia was finished with college, women weren't supposed to be ministers. Women never stood up in front of a congregation and talked about God. But Olympia did. She did all those things and more. Olympia graduated from the theological school at St. Lawrence University in 1863, and she was ordained a Unitarian minister in June of that year, the second woman ever to be officially ordained by that church. She became the Reverend Olympia Brown. Women ought not to speak in public, said a minister at that time. Women ought not to take the pulpit or discuss the nature of God, but the Reverend Olympia Brown did. During the next 35 years, she was a minister in 5 different congregations, and she visited other congregations too. She took the pulpit in every single one. And she spoke on the nature of God and love, and she did an excellent job. Olympia Brown had a voice, and she used it every day. When Olympia Brown was born, women weren't allowed to vote. Women weren't allowed to have any say in who was elected president or senator or mayor of the town. But Olympia had something to say about that. Olympia had a lot to say about that. She traveled all over the state of Kansas in a horse and buggy, giving speeches to convince people that women deserved the right to vote. She wrote hundreds of letters. She spoke to the representatives and senators in Congress. She marched in parades. Olympia and her friends worked hard to get women the right to vote. Olympia Brown had a voice, and she used it every day for over 50 years. And finally, when Olympia Brown was old, women were allowed to vote. And in November of 1920, just a little over 100 years ago, when Olympia was 85 years old, she voted for the very first time. Olympia had always had a voice, and she'd used it to make sure that she and the other women in the United States had a vote as well.
As we know right now, the right to vote that we thought was a battle we were done with, but it is back. As we make space for the joys and sorrows of this congregation, I invite you to join in our communion of names and add in the chat the names of those who are on your heart this morning, whether due to a joy or a sorrow. Bring your joys and all of your sorrow and come here just as you are. Let us come together. There is space here for your whole self. This space, welcome, this sacred space we are co-creating together welcomes you and all that you bring with you. And now I want to lead us in a body blessing that was written by Reverend Lisa Bovee Kemper. Touch your forehead if it feels natural for you to do so. May you be blessed with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. May your intellect take you far on your journey. You have been blessed with reason and free will. It is your call every day to use these gifts. Now touch your throat. You have been blessed with voice. May you learn the complex nature of truth-telling. The ability to speak the truth in love is something that requires honesty, empathy, and care. You are challenged every day to seek the joy that comes with sharing your truth compassionately, as well as listening to others. Heart. May your heart be full and blessed with love. May you know the agony of heartbreak as it is intertwined with the elation of true love. Your heart is a strong and resilient organ, one that will be with you until the end of your time on earth. May you heed the wisdom of your heart and always trust the truth it tells. Abdomen. You are blessed with the gift of sexuality. May you always remember that you are a beloved child of God. Your body is sacred and belongs to you alone. May you live into the full expression of your identity as a human being, embracing your true sexual and gender identity. The gift of sexuality brings with it many rewards as well as great responsibility. May you always retain power over your own being, striving toward mutually fulfilling and just relationship. Hands. May your hands be gentle and strong. May you use them to carry light into the darkness and rest to the weary. May your hands always find the place of greatest need, beginning with your own. And may the Creator of all things hold you in the palm of her hand wherever you go. Now wrap your arms around your body. May you be blessed on your journey. May you remember that growth happens on the journey and that you are never alone. May you always remember that you are a whole person, that each of these parts work together. We offer our blessings upon you, your body, mind, and spirit. May you be guided by compassion and truth, justice and love. May you find rest on the journey, always remembering where you came from, being mindful that your ancestors are behind you, whether we are present on earth or have gone back to the soul of the world. May you be blessed in all things that carry blessings with you wherever you go. Join me now in singing the next hymn, How Could Anyone? Words will be on the screen.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
To the next. Go to the next.
Someday we'll be free. I promise you we'll be free. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. And the candles in our hand will illuminate this land. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. And the world that gives us pain, that fills our lives with fear, on the day after that will disappear. And the war we fought to win, I promise you we will win. If not tomorrow, then the day after that, or the day after that. Someday we'll be free. I promise you we'll be free. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. And the candles in our hand will illuminate this land. If not tomorrow, then the day after that. And the world that gives us pain, that fills our life with fear, on the day after that will disappear, will disappear. And the war we fought to win, I promise you we will win. If not tomorrow, then the day after that, or 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 the day after that.
Last month, we explored the third and fourth UU principles. At that time, I invited us to deepen our spiritual life so that we might be equipped to do the justice work we are called to do, so that the work might be grounded in theology. Today, we are looking into the fifth and sixth principles, the two that address to a great extent our call and how we might go about fulfilling it. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within the congregation and in society at large, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Terry Tempest Williams notes that the human heart is the first home of democracy. the human heart. It's the first home of democracy. It is where we embrace our questions. Can we be equitable? Can we be generous? Can we listen with our whole beings, not just our minds, and offer attention rather than our opinions? And do we have enough resolve in our hearts to act courageously, relentlessly, without giving up, ever, trusting our fellow citizens to join us in our determined pursuit of a living democracy? You know, it's not a connection I generally make. Democracy is a matter of the heart. But that's exactly what it is, right? Engaging in the democratic process is, in a way, putting in action that we are all in this together, and that what others do have value, no less, no greater than what we do, than who we are. It is a sacred connection with others. It's a reliance on others, a trust of others to journey with us. So I hope that the next time you vote, you get the warm and fuzzies, because you're putting your hard work into action. And with regard to the sixth principle, Reverend Sean Parker Dennison states, the sixth principle seems extravagant in its hopefulness and improbable in its prospect. Can we continue to say that we want world community, peace, liberty, and justice for all? The world is full of genocide, abuse, terror, war. What have we gotten ourselves into? Indeed, what have we gotten ourselves into? But Dennison continues, as naive or impossible as the sixth principle may seem, I am not willing to give up on it. In the face of our culture's apathy and fear, I want to imagine and help create a powerful vision of peace with peaceful means, of liberty with liberatory means, of justice with just means. I want to believe and to live as if we believe that a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all is possible. There is no guarantee that we will succeed, but I can assure you that we will improve ourselves and improve the world by trying. Right? That is an ambitious principle, to have a goal of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Is that really possible? All I can say is it's a good thing that our principles are aspirations, right? Things we work towards, ways of being that we work towards being. And when we look at the world as it is today, with all the work that those who came before us have done to bend the arc of the universe towards justice, when we look at the bigotry, the poverty, the hatred, the suffering, the evil that continues to persist, when we look at how children and how women are abused in their own homes and by their governments, how black bodies are mistreated, or how black bodies are destroyed, how LGBTQ folks continue to be mistreated. When we look at all these things, we might wonder if we'll ever make it to that beloved community that Dr. King spoke about. And it is specifically because of those reasons that I implore us to ground this difficult, extravagant, and probable work in theology so that we might be sustained as we undertake it. It is also why the phrase Groundhog Day comes to mind for me when I think of our call in this world. For it is work that we have to keep doing over and over and over again until perhaps Ground Day ceases to be and we experience the light of a brand new day. It is repetitive work that seems hopeless at times. But beloveds, what is the alternative? As a people who envision this world with peace, liberty, and justice, where these things reign, the only choice is to strengthen our resolve over and over and over again, and to have a robust theology and spiritual life. Yesterday, December 22nd, was the 49th anniversary of the landmark Roe versus Wade decision affording those in female bodies the right to abortion. In commemoration of this important decision and the ongoing fight for reproductive health, rights, and justice, we are joining other UU congregations across the country this morning in solidarity. And this next offering is done in that vein. May the message help us in strengthening the resolve of our hearts.
When I write my memoir, the first line is likely to be, unlike most people, I learned about sex from my parents and religion from my friends. My parents were remarkably open about sexuality, and my mom is here someplace in the Zoom world listening. I found my mother's birth control pills in the kitchen when I was 7, and I asked her what they were. And she answered my question directly. Those are birth control pills. We've had the children we want, and so I take this each day so we can enjoy sex without worrying. I know. At dinner, we discuss civil rights, the women's movement, and yes, sex. It wasn't until I was in college that I learned that most parents don't talk to their children about sexuality, that most people grow up with a complicated stew of misinformation, myth, fear, guilt, shame, confusion about their sexuality, and it often comes from their religion. So I want you to think for a moment. Did the church of your youth tell you that your sexuality was a blessing from God and that you should celebrate it? Or did you learn that sexuality needed to be controlled, that your sexual feelings were wrong, and that sex only belonged in a monogamous, lifelong heterosexual marriage, preferably with procreation as the goal? Maybe you got mixed messages about your sexuality from your religion, or some of you are thinking, they never mentioned this at all. For more than 45 years now, my vocation has been helping people understand that sexuality is a central part of life for all of us. No matter how old we are, no matter our gender, our orientation, our romantic orientation, and to work to help people understand that their sexuality, their spirituality, and how they practice their faith are intimately connected. During the past 20 years, my ministry has helped thousands of religious professionals, congregations, and denominations become sexually healthy and just. And I've organized religious progressives to speak out for sexual justice. But I want to take you back even further. I have vivid memories of January 22nd, 1973. That was the day that the Supreme Court overturned the ban on abortions in the US. I was a freshwoman in college. We were elated. The days of having to arrange rides to New York City for abortions were going to be over. The days of women dropping out of high school and college to have babies they were ill-equipped to raise were over. We thought this right was secured forever. The first time I marched for women's rights was in 1976. I wore a long white dress with a purple and yellow sash modeled after the suffragettes. I was 22. I have lost track of the number of times I have marched or spoken at rallies in Washington, D.C. I have counted 28 since January of 2016. My family, including our 4-year-old daughter, marched for access to abortion in 1989. I was 35. We marched again in 2003 as a family, and that time I was a speaker at a rally in front of the Capitol. In 2016, I spoke at a rally at the Supreme Court as it heard a case about abortion clinics. And this past December 1st, I was once again back in the court. Here's a slide, a picture of me with my Unitarian Universalist colleagues. That's 45 years of protesting on abortion rights. When I was there this past December, I couldn't help but think of this sign that I saw at the Women's March in 2020, held by a woman older than me. I was 19 when Roe was decided and 62 when marriage equality became the law of the land, and I thought we were done with having to fight for sexual rights. We aren't done. The last administration worked mightily to roll back sexual rights, even as the president boasted on national TV about his sexual conquests. In 2021, 8 states enacted bills against transgender people, limiting their rights to sports, to bathrooms, even to medical care. And many more states are considering these bills this year. I know you know that Texas enacted a law banning all abortions at 6 weeks of pregnancy, 4 weeks post-conception. And there is a Mississippi law that bans abortion at 15 weeks that is currently being deliberated by the Supreme Court. Most of the leaders I know in the reproductive justice movement believe that the Roe decision will be overturned this year. Overturned. 21 states are ready to ban abortion when that happens. See, what you need to understand is that abortion and LGBTQ rights are intertwined. The Supreme Court cases that gave gay people the right to have sex, and yes, that was not given to them until 2003, and the right to marry are based on the Roe decision's affirmation of a constitutional right to privacy. But it's more than just the legal aspects. Both reproductive rights and sexual orientation rights are fundamentally about the right to be able to live your sexual, intimate, personal life without governmental interference. All adult sexual rights, the right to marry, the right to pleasure, the right to bodily autonomy, are endangered if anyone's rights to a consensual adult sexual relationship is imperiled. And all of this is happening despite the fact that most Americans support sexual rights. 7 in 10 Americans believe abortion should be legal, at least in some circumstances. And an equal percentage believe that there should be laws protecting LGBTQ plus people from discrimination. People from every religion support the right of individuals to make their own moral decisions. Clear majorities from every religious tradition in the United States support safe and legal abortion, except evangelical Christians. Now, what I want to tell you is there is nothing new about this religious support for sexual and reproductive justice. More than a dozen major religious denominations passed policies, some as many as 60 years ago, to support access to legal abortion. In the 1960s, it was clergy who opened the first abortion clinic in New York City in the United States and who fought for the repeal of abortion laws. Our denomination, Unitarian Universalism, was in the vanguard of promoting women's and LGBTQ rights. So we, my friends, we need to call the attacks on women and attacks on LGBTQ people what they are: immoral attacks on people's rights and moral agency. Laura Penny, a journalist, wrote this in the New Republic: "We live in a society that is comfortable letting men get away with sexual violence, but determined not to let women get away with consensual sex." She goes on, "It is time to be completely clear. Forcing a woman to give birth against her will is morally equivalent to rape. It is the same logic of entitlement and abuse. Men get to control women's bodies. Female sexual agency must be punished. Women's consent doesn't matter." So, as people of faith, we cannot allow the extreme right to be the voice of religion in the public square. We need to reclaim the Bible, the flag. After January 6th, democracy and for those of us who are theists, God from those on the right who claim to own them. Now, we have work to do. We must do a better job of articulating consistent and common sense moral messages. We need to say the sin is never sex and sexuality. The sin is sexual violence, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and misconduct. The sin is never homosexuality, but heterosexism, the presumption that there is one way to love. The sin is not transgender people, but transphobia. The sin is forcing a pregnant person to carry a pregnancy to term and give birth against their will. The sin is to deny anyone their God-given gift of who they are, of their own sexual and gender identity, or the information, services, and rights they need to make responsible decision. See, I know from all of my work all these years that America understands that the goal of sexuality education is to develop healthy sexual adults who appreciate their own bodies and interact with all genders in respectful ways. We must have a goal to help people, regardless of who they love and who they are attracted to, if anyone at all, to make decisions congruent with their own personal values. All of us have to learn to discriminate between sexual behaviors that are life-enhancing and those that might be harmful to someone else. We need to articulate a new ethic for a moral sexual relationship. It is not a wedding band that makes sex moral, or whether the partners are straight or gay or bisexual, but whether the relationship is consensual, non-exploitive, honest, mutually pleasurable, and protected against disease and pregnancy. We need to say that love is love is love. Everyone must have the ability to affirm their sexual and gender identity and to live without discrimination, fear, and violence. We, as progressives, must affirm that freedom of religion means that government cannot privilege the teachings of one religion over another. We know no single religious voice can speak out for all faith traditions or all people of faith on such sexuality issues as abortion, same-sex partnerships, gender, sexuality education, stem cell research, and so on. And I believe that America understands that government should not take a side on religious differences. The founding document of my organization was called the Religious Declaration on Sexual Morality, Justice, and Healing. It was endorsed by more than 8,000 American religious leaders. It claims sexuality is central to our humanity and integral to our spirituality. It recognizes that almost every faith tradition starts with a celebration of the goodness of our bodies and our sexuality, and that too many have suffered when sexualities have been abused or exploited. It calls on congregations of all stripes and kinds to look at how they offer sexuality education, not just to youth, but to people of all ages, including midlife and older and elder adults, how we welcome all, and how we have policies and procedures to keep people free from sexual abuse, harassment, and misconduct. The closing words of the Religious Declaration state, God rejoices when we celebrate our sexuality with holiness and integrity. And so may it be for each of us, for our children and for our grandchildren in all the days ahead. So may it be. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Haffner, for that message and for your decades of work on this very important issue. If you would like to contribute to the many ministries of this congregation, you can use the donate button in the upper right-hand section of the homepage at www.orlandou.org, or you can write a check made out to First Unitarian Church of Orlando, or you can send a text following the instructions in the weekly update. You may also give to our January Share the Plate partner, One Heart for Women and Children, directly through their website or with a check to us, and we will make sure it gets to them. And just let one you know if you give directly. And now I invite us all to sing One More Step, our closing hymn today.
till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Seek for the spirit of life that is within you, that you might know more fully its power and strength. Seek for the spirit of life that surrounds you, that you might know more fully its connection to you. Seek the spirit of life that is within others, that you might enter more fully into the community that embraces us this day and every day. Elizabeth Strong. Friends, worship has ended, and now the service truly begins. Join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.